Okay, so James Careless and I had a little chat beforehand about some SI stuff before I started recording, so I'm not going to recap those questions for everybody, but move straight into some other kind of questions. Um, can you talk to me about you've won on a game show a choice between a brand new Corvette, a recreational vehicle, a set of jet skis, or a vacation to an exotic location. All these prize packages are of equivalent value. Which do you choose?
Um, Probably either the recreational vehicle or the vacation package, depending on how lavish the vacation package is. I mean, if it's a vacation package that would be equal in value to an RV, I would probably take the vacation package because I'd probably be one good
Oh
vacation
yeah, first
package.
class all the way.
Um, but the RV is tempting as well. The Corvette and the jet ski, I don't. That probably wouldn't appeal to me as much.
Okay,
So
so now let's
so I
play
would I
pick
would
your prize.
so pick one of them.
No, I mean now let's play pick your prize. You've got the equivalent amount of money. You get to construct a prize you want.
Okay. Um, I
It
would
it
probably
can't be cash.
can't be cash. Okay. Um, Probably an investment in either a record collection or I would say a Criterion DVD Blu-ray collection of from the Criterion collection, which is a line of DVDs that releases like classic foreign and classic movies and stuff, and they're fairly expensive. They're like $35, $40 usually for one movie. So probably a collection of either the movies or the record collection, or an extensive record collection.
Would you get LP records specifically? Vinyl?
You mean as opposed to like downloads or stuff?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I would if I could, I would get records. I mean, I like the way they sound better. I don't even have a turntable myself, but um,
we
if I
dream.
had the money, I would do it. But I mean, but I have the streaming and I can listen to what I want to listen to. But I would love to have a good record collection. Just put that record on and just listen to
We dream of a rad LP room setup, but
it.
ultimately we still just listen to shit on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, I feel you on that dream though. I like envision myself in this James Bondy kind of house where a whole room is just set up for audio listening. It's just LPs wall to wall with,
Oh
a
yeah.
couple super rad turntables and bumping speakers and a big system. Like very kind of old school Kenwood style.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some YouTube channels I watch that are, for movie reviewers, DVD reviewers, that you look behind them as they do the videos, and it's like the whole three walls behind them covered from ceiling to floor with shelves just full of DVDs. And I mean, I would love to have a room like that and just be able to just pull something off anytime I wanted.
Have you seen Robert Altman's The Player?
Yeah, I love that. I'm a pretty big Robert Altman fan in general. But yeah, The Player was actually, I think it was the first movie I saw by him, was The Player.
What do
It
you
was
think?
either that or MASH.
What do you think about McCabe and Mrs. Miller?
Love it.
Not too slow.
Love it. No, I love it and also it's got Leonard Cohen's music in it, which I love Leonard Cohen as well. So it's like Altman, Leonard Cohen. Just, I like it. I mean, I don't find it slow. It's kind of it's been called an anti-Western because it overturns all the conventions of westerns. But I just love the kind of haunting feel. of that movie.
With that scene
And
on the bridge, though, right?
with the cowboy, where you
Oh God, it's
that is, yeah. I actually watched that with a friend of mine who was a big fan of the the older westerns, and he thought that scene was just the worst thing ever. He said that's just bad. That I don't like that.
I mean,
Like he,
it was painful to watch. I haven't seen the
yeah,
movie in decades, and I remember it as being a painful scene to watch.
it is. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Well, you and I certainly have some shared esoteric media experiences. Uh, okay, let's talk about what kind of music you listen to when you listen to music.
I mean, as far as willingness to listen to music, there's not much that I won't listen to. Um, but I am more picky on music than I am on like film and stuff. And I don't watch that whole lot of TV shows, but I do watch a lot of movies. But with music, I'm a little bit more picky. I tend to like music that just kind of it just kind of gets me going. Like it kind of in some way it kind of gets me moving. It's kind of like an exhilarating feeling. I'm not a huge fan of like discordant music that's just kind of noise. Like even though I appreciate, it's like I admire that music, but I don't. It doesn't really move me personally, so I don't.
Best to admire it from afar.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like how I feel about a lot of hip hop. Like I have a friend who's like really big into hip hop, and it's like I there's some hip hop songs that I think are great, but a lot of like why that genre as a whole kind of irritates me is that a lot of the songs are people sitting there telling you that they're great and that they're the talent that they have and that they have so much to say, and they don't really say anything in the song. It's just kind of like, and I'm going to tell you the truth, and it's just that's all they do the whole song is just telling you that they're going to tell you the truth, but they never actually say anything. It's kind of just bragging. So I find that uninteresting.
I'm a truth teller, telling truth. Here's some truth for you. Listen to it. It's coming up soon. Just keep on waiting.
Yeah.
My friend Corey has a song called Rap Music. The of it are I like rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I go down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they're better than the other MCs and more clever. Oh, okay.
So yeah, I like. I guess just to be direct in my answer, as much direct as I can be, I like a lot of classic rock type stuff.
All
Because I
right,
kind of grew
let's
up with it.
play Meow Meow.
I like pop '80s.
Let's play Meow Meow. Okay.
Okay,
Led Zeppelin or Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones,
Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones,
Rolling Stones um, or the Cars.
Rolling Stones. I'm a pretty big Rolling Stones fan in general. I'd say out of those groups you named, the closest competitor would be the Beatles probably, and then Zeppelin close as well. But the Cars to me would be, I would put them a little
I mean,
bit
they're a different
heavyweight.
era, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Black Sabbath.
Like I would
I
say
give you
like
a list.
Talking
Let me
Heads.
give you a list of like 5 or 6 same era people, and you try to coordinate them. Okay. Black Sabbath, the Who, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and what's another one from that era that's one of those big bands like that? If you can think of another one, but if not, just those 5 then. The Who, Black
You said
Sabbath.
The
Yeah,
Who was one of them.
yeah. The Who, Black Sabbath.
Pink
Oh, Pink
Floyd.
Floyd. Yes, take Pink Floyd there. Okay, Pink Floyd, The Who, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, The Beatles, Rolling Stones. Put those in order.
I would probably put Sabbath at the bottom. Um,
Putting Sabbath at the
The
bottom.
Who, yeah. I mean, I like Black Sabbath, but I would put them at the bottom. The top might be, believe it or not, might be the Who or Pink Floyd. The Who, Pink Floyd, and Rolling Stones are pretty close. Zeppelin would probably be so. Maybe the Who first, Pink Floyd second, Rolling Stones third, Beatles fourth. Who else? Who am I leaving out? Was it just Led Zeppelin after that, and then Sabbath probably.
Okay, you got that
I
completely
like
wrong.
Zeppelin,
You got
but
that
it's like
completely
those are
wrong.
all like you gotta like give me some
It
some
should go
lesser,
like
you gotta
this.
give me like T-Rex,
It should
because
go
like T-Rex would be lower.
Beatles, then Sabbath, not Sabbath, Beatles, then Zeppelin, then I guess the Rolling Stones, then Sabbath, then Pink Floyd, then the Who. The Who is
To be
terrible.
have you seen have you heard Quadrophenia?
I mean, it's so
That's a
self-indulgent.
great
It's
album.
operatic without the
But
melodic competence of, say, Queen. You know.
yeah, yeah, I like all of those bands. It's hard to pick. Black Sabbath, though, in full disclosure, I have not listened to a whole lot of Black
Well, they
Sabbath.
only
I've
got a
just
couple
never.
good songs. They only got a couple good
Yeah.
songs. What about the CCR versus God, what was the other one I was just thinking? Um, Creedence Clearwater Revival versus God, what was the other one I was just thinking about it? It was in the same vein as them, and then my brain lost it. Do you like Creedence Clearwater Revival?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
In
put.
fact, I saw a concert a couple, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, of the non John Fogerty members of the group.
I
It
wonder
was
which is better, John Fogerty by himself or the non-John Fogerty people.
probably Fogerty, I would think, but and because the concert was held at a casino, and like literally they had like folding chairs set up for the audience, so it was not a high profile gig.
Oh, do you
But
like Steely Dan?
uh geez, like not really. It's like I'm trying to think of a band like Steely Dan that I like. I do like that one song. Is it Baker Street? I like
There
that
really
song.
aren't a lot of bands to compare against
No,
Steely
that's
Dan. You
yeah,
know,
that's
they're
not
hard to
Baker Street.
compare.
Isn't. I just think of like what like Steely Dan. It's like what do they do? Like back Jack, do it again. Is that them?
Yeah, that's one of their songs.
Yeah, they
They,
Ricky don't lose that number.
yeah, neither of those are
Um,
particularly of their better songs, but
I,
yeah.
I've got a feeling. Yeah, I've got a feeling you. I think I would like them if I went into their deep cuts. I don't really like their radio stuff though. It's kind of like Zeppelin. I don't really like the stuff they play on the radio for Zeppelin. Like I find a lot of their deeper cuts I like better.
Okay, so let's talk about more recent stuff that you favor, and like what about hits you've heard on the radio that you go, hey, that's a good one, versus hits you've heard on the radio that go like, oh, I can't stand that song. For example, maybe you like Call Me Maybe, but you hated Genie in a Bottle.
uh, I like that song by Portugal the Man. It was like from a few years back. It was called "Feel It Still." I thought that song was a
Yeah,
decent rock song.
yeah, it's good.
Um, and I've liked that band before that as well. The stuff I don't like a lot of times is like the Lil Nas X kind of stuff. That's just to me, it's all built around the music video rather than the song. So it's almost like without the music video, you don't really have a song. So
Don't you love it when there's a 3 minute song and a 7 minute music video?
yeah, like the one song and video that I absolutely hated, and I didn't really mind this artist before this was the new one from Casey Musgraves. I just said, wow. she's completely trying to go pop music now, and she started out country, and she was actually pretty good with country, but it's she's trying to do this Taylor Swift thing now, and it was just awful.
Well,
And the video was worse than the song. The song wasn't that bad, but the video was terrible.
mm,
Totally
I'm not
like just
familiar with
pandering.
I'm not familiar with her, but I get the idea. Um, okay, so let me try typing you a little bit now instead of just chatting with you about music. Um, can you tell me 6 different ways to justify planning your family vacation for Toledo, Ohio?
6 ways to justify.
To your family why you're taking them all on vacation to Toledo.
Okay. Um, well, I live in Massachusetts, so to get there, we would be traveling from Massachusetts to Toledo in that direction. So I would say it is. I'm thinking of like of things that we would see when we were there. As like, okay, so we're gonna go. So Toledo, Ohio, is like there's several highly popular theme parks that are near Toledo. And one of them is Kings Island, and one of them is Cedar Point. So it's like, okay, so we're gonna go hit those two parks. So that's
Okay,
two
so I
reasons
happen
right
upon you
there.
somebody who knows about Toledo, Ohio. Fantastic. That you're destroying the whole purpose of this
You know,
question. I'm
we're
supposed to
gonna
pick BF nowhere that
we're
nobody
gonna
knows
we're gonna
anything
stop
about.
at we're gonna stop at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Okay, you're ruining my question
We're
by
gonna go to
knowing too much.
Primanti Brothers for a sandwich in Pittsburgh, and it'll just be a good experience to this like coastal elites that we are living up in Massachusetts. It'll be a nice opportunity for us to explore the heartland of the country a little bit more.
Okay. Well, the thing is, the question is designed to have you generate reasons to go someplace that nobody could possibly think of any reasons to go to because they don't really know anything about. But you obviously know way too much about Toledo, Ohio. So let me switch it to a different place that you probably don't know about. Um, reasons to go to Temecula, California.
I mean, I would say California is a state that has a lot of things to do, a lot to offer. It's a beautiful state. Um, and I don't
But
know
why
much about
specifically
Temecula.
Temecula, Daddy? Why are you
I
taking us
have
to Temecula?
in that situation, I'd most likely say that's actually a pretty good point. Why don't we adjust that?
So you'd Google it and see why you were going to Temecula. Okay, that makes
I
sense.
would I think the best thing I would say is that no matter where you go, as long as it's not where you live, you're going to see something interesting or something a little bit different than what you're used to.
Can you tell him I'm busy? Oh, I'm sorry, somebody's calling me. Um, would you be the person to set up a trip like that, or would that be somebody else?
I would probably plan the trip as far as like mapping out the route, the roads, the places we want to stay, doing the research on that. Where I get into problems is with the technical stuff as far as like booking reservations, booking flights, booking, all of that stuff. Sometimes that can be a little bit irritating. But yeah, I think I could probably plan the trip.
Would you be more likely
Uh,
to irritatedly do it yourself or try to delegate it? The parts you find irritating.
um, Again, probably just irritatedly do it myself. Like I can get 90% of it. It's the part that I can't get is like trying to sign into something, or like trying to like set up an account, or and sometimes I can run into difficulties with that. But I mean, even that, it depends. I mean, I think I would just do it myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, But
So
if it's something that I don't, but if it's something that I don't care, like a vacation, I would care about that. Like that would have value to me. Like because it's something I like to do. If it's like something that I have to do, like for planning for some obligation type thing, that it's going to be harder for me to get motivated to do that.
okay, so I'm gonna give you an example of one time, yeah, happened to me, and I'll never make that mistake again. And see if you can give me a comparable example. So one time we rented
Okay.
a car from Dollar Rent a Car in Hawaii that was advertised at a certain price, and then by the time we were done with it, they tried to tack on like an extra $1,000, and I was like, the fuck, And anyway, and after that, I said, I'll never rent a car probably at all again. It probably just makes more sense to Uber or public transport wherever it is you're going, but I'll certainly never rent a car from them again.
Hmm.
Can you think of a
Okay.
comparable example?
Yeah. Um, I there was a time at my aunt and uncle's house when I was actually doing the dishes, and I I put them in I put these plastic cups in the dishwasher, and I put them on the bottom rack, and they were these disposable plastic cups that they reused. They actually reused them, but they're disposable plastic cups, and I put them in the lower thing, put it in. When it's done, I open it up, and all of the plastic cups had melted because the heat on the lower rack is too high. They have to be on the top. And my uncle said, "Oh, you got to put them on the top," And from that point forward, I never did anything like that. I never put any kind of plastic or anything on the bottom rack.
Yeah, that's a good example. Um, so, can you come up with a comparable to my potato touch story? I'm assuming you've heard it.
I've heard it. I could use a refresher. I think that's the one with the fingers touching the potato,
Right. So
but I don't remember what the.
I keep my eye out to see if they're going to touch my potato the whole time,
Yeah.
waiting for my food. Then they deliver to me, and I realize I ordered rice pilaf, not potato. So why was I watching out for them to touch my potato? I wasn't going to get a potato because I associated potato getting with ordering a meal. But the reality is, when you order a meal, they ask you, do you want baked potato or rice pilaf? So I never got a meal usually. But I noted whenever people did get meals and they had the potato, that was the potato touch problem arising. So I had trained myself to say, when I get a meal, make sure they don't touch your potato. But when I did get a meal, I actually got rice pilaf, rendering my need to check for them to touch my potato irrelevant. So this is an example of my SI being conscious, doing its thing, when I would have been a preferable way to approach the matter, which is say intuitively know about the current reality, which is I ordered rice pilaf, so there's no potato touching matter. The potato touching matter is moot.
Yeah, I think there was one typing session I watched where I thought of something like that, but I can't remember what it is, and that doesn't usually happen to me too much. Like I don't, I know what you're talking about. It has happened, but
Okay, let me
I
throw
can't
this
really
out there
remember.
for you. You got your sunglasses on your head, and you're walking around going, "Where are my sunglasses?" Or your phone in your hand, and you're walking
Yeah.
around going, "Where is my phone?" Does that ever happen?
Okay, that's happened. Yeah. Like, oh, where's my phone? It's right in my pocket.
Right. Or but
Yeah, that's
specifically, when
that's
things are in your hand, this happens to me. When something is in my hand and I'm looking for it, and I go, "Eric, it's in your hand." That's a little bit frustrating when that happens.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm more likely to do something, more along the lines of like leaving my phone if I go out, leaving my phone back at home. And I get into the car and usually as soon as I get in the car, I take my phone out of my pocket. So I know once I get in the car that I've left the phone behind, but and I have to go back in and get it, and it's just always irritating.
Okay, can you think of an example of a potato touch story where you had in mind keep your eye out for this? You did keep your eye out for this. You're glad you did because there wasn't any rice pilaf element.
Uh yeah. Um I'm thinking of something relating to food service where, like fast food or something, where I specify, like, and please, like make sure it has this on it because I've several other times I've been here and you didn't put this on it, or like marinara sauce. Like if I went to Burger King one time, I got mozzarella sticks. Now I get home and it's like there's no marinara, there's no dipping sauce.
Oh my
So,
lord.
I mean, and it's like, and my friend was there, and he said, "Oh yeah, you have to ask them for the dipping sauce." I said, "You got to be kidding me!" I drove all the way back there and told the guy. But it's like I will do that now. If I go to these places, I'll say dipping sauce. I know a time I did it. Popeyes. I went to Popeyes, and this happened twice. I asked them, you know, they handed me the bag, and I just said one at the time I had rice and beans in the thing. That do you have a spork or whatever that I can use to eat this? And she said, "Oh," and she handed it to me. So she didn't put it. She didn't put a thing to eat it with in the bag. And then another time she gave me two drinks. Another girl, this was, gave me two drinks, two sodas because they didn't have the cups for the large. So she gave me like two smalls, but she didn't give me any straws. So, like, when she handed them to me, I said, "Are there straws in the bag?" And she said, "Oh," and she gave me the straws.
This is Popeyes. The fact that you're surprised is a little alarming.
Now this is New Bedford, Massachusetts. That's what it is where I live.
But Popeyes, dude,
The
I
service
swear.
is not the best.
No, but universally, Popeyes is ridiculous. Rachel and I go there. Shit like that happens constantly. They don't have things. They don't know if they have things. It's like Popeyes is whoever's running Popeyes is not running a tight ship.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I've got some strong senses, sort of intuitively, of who you are. But let's see if we can narrow this down with some skills tests. Let's try some TE stuff first. Can you break down smoking a cigarette into four steps?
To four steps. Okay. Um, Remove the cigarette from the pack. Place it in your lip. Place it in your mouth. Hold a lighter up to the cigarette. Light the cigarette and inhale.
Well, I would point out that's four steps to lighting a cigarette, but pretty good. Um, do you have any suggestions for solving California's drought problem?
Um, Kind of ripping this off, but Gatorade, because plants crave electrolytes.
That's what plants crave.
I, I don't. I really don't. I mean, I've heard that one before. I've heard that one on other typing sessions, and that one I'm always just kind of like, well, um, I did hear one thing that actually is a good strategy that seems to have potential. Apparently, there are these black. They look like big black balls that they put in the water and in reservoirs and stuff. And these black balls, because they're black, they prevent evaporation of the water. So it allows the reservoirs to not be depleted by the extreme heat, and the extreme evaporation. And I guess they're just designed to do that. They're designed to absorb all that heat so that the water itself doesn't absorb it. That would seem to be like a real strategy that could work.
An
Um,
evaporation prevention device. I actually am familiar with those things. Yeah, I'm not sure how widely they're implemented or not. Of
yeah,
course, one of the challenges of doing that is you make those reservoirs single use because they you can't take your boats on them or fish in them or stuff like that anymore. So it's got its
yeah,
upsides and downsides. California's also got a mostly open aqueduct. They could cover it, That would probably help.
Yeah, yeah.
I never thought about that before, but since you mentioned those balls, they could just make it a tunnel instead of just an open trench. Like Rachel and I walked up to the aqueduct the other day, not the other day, a few months back. We were just driving around to this area of Palmdale where they've got like quartz sitting around. We were looking for quartz and stuff, you know, and and there was this fence that said, "Don't go past here. There's the aqueduct." And it was already like somebody had already spread it apart for us, so we just walked up 10 feet and we're standing right there next to the aqueduct, and it's just this concrete trench, fairly big, wide trench of just water just flowing open to the air. They could cover that
Yeah.
up, probably save a lot of water that way. Anyway, regardless, let's try some TI questions. If some trees have leaves, and some things that have leaves are tables, are some trees tables?
Some trees have leaves, and some things that have leaves are tables.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay. If only barbecues produce pulled pork, and I produce pulled pork, am I a barbecue?
Yes.
Okay. Who is my maternal grandmother's only son in law's only daughter's brother in relation to me?
Only daughter-in-law's only brother,
No,
you say?
I said my maternal grandmother's only son in law's only daughter's brother in relation to me.
I'm losing it on the on the son-in-law after the son-in-law. The son-in-law's daughter's only daughter's
Brother.
brother.
Right.
It's it's you
Or,
or your brother.
right.
Yeah, because you didn't say only. That's why I was asking about if you said only, only brother, because then it definitely would have been you.
Right. True that. Um, okay, how many synonyms can you think of for the word coquettish?
Uh, um, Playful, flirty, dainty. Um, it's actually a word I haven't used that much, but uh,
Coy, maybe.
yeah.
Not a word I asked for synonyms of before, but can you show me without saying any words, just with your facial expressions and your body language, show me coquettish? That's pretty coquettish. Um,
Oh dear. Oh dear.
okay, so do you think coquettish people are more likely to have the vapors?
Have the what?
The
The
vapors.
the vapors? I don't know what that is.
Well, it's something that Southern people used to say, like, "Oh dear, I've got the vapors." It meant
Okay.
they were all a flutter, I guess. You know.
I
Okay.
must put on a wide brimmed hat.
Exactly. So, do you see yourself first as a knower, first as an action person, first as a reactor, or first as a decider?
Um, I know you've talked about these words in conjunction with typology, but looking at them just as the words themselves, I would say probably knower,
Okay.
maybe. I don't. I don't know if I'm passive enough to be reactor, but I don't know if I'm active enough to be an action. Action, be
Okay.
actiony. Um,
Do you think you know most by your experience or your observation?
I'd say kind of both. I mean, in the workplace, I think more experience, like for jobs I've had. But I think like in terms of like knowledge and like knowing what's going on in the world and stuff, it's more observation. It's more like reading and researching things and looking things up and finding out information. But I find for like with the workplace, it's more of like you learn from making mistakes, basically.
When it comes to information, do you see information as something that you deliver, something that lands on you, something that you go get, or something else?
Probably most something I go get. I do like to communicate it to people, but I think I probably am more interested in getting more information than disseminating it out to people. But I do like to do that as well.
Okay, are you more interested in information about why things are or how things work or how to do things?
Why things are
Okay.
definitely.
Um, when you aren't watching informational videos, but just videos that are for entertainment purposes, you're more likely to watch, say, sitcoms, horror, action, or do you have any kind of or broad tastes? Or talk to me a little bit about your video consuming tastes.
Okay. Movies. It's like I'll try to be brief because I could go on all day. I mean, I'm a huge movie buff, so I've seen like movies from all time periods, like all over the world. I don't care what the subject matter is usually. Like it could be about anything. I'm just interested in movies that are in some way unique. I do tend to prefer movies that are either really ambitious and like high quality or movies that are like really terrible. Like the stuff in the middle, the stuff that's just like, it was okay. Those are the things that I tend not to watch. I don't like bland stuff.
So, do you prefer
Um,
feature film length over, say, episodic length, hour long or half hour long shows?
I find that I have a hard time with TV shows. Like, somebody really needs to keep me on track with them because I can lose interest very quickly. If I'm watching a series, even a show that I really like, and we hit a couple of dud episodes in a row, like I recently watched all of the X Files with a friend of mine, and he was a big fan of the show, and I'd never really seen it all the way through. And there would just be times when we'd run into one or two bad episodes in a row, and I'd be like, "We're not watching this again for at least a week." I said, "I'm not. I'm getting stale on this show." So a lot of times, like if I get some bad episodes, I'll just be like, "All right, this is like too much commitment." Like I like the fact that a 2 hour movie, it's like you sit down, you get the whole experience in one sitting and it's over and then you can process it and it's with a show it's like it's this ongoing thing, which means that for me the show has to be really, I have to really be hooked on the show to really like stick with it.
And
And
do you feel like if it had a great couple of seasons, but then the third season stank, that the show as a whole was a failure, or that the first two seasons made it worth it?
it depends. If I hear that 4 and 5 are like better than 3, then yeah, I wouldn't write the show off just because of season 3. Well, that's a season that's considered not to be that good, so I'll take that into consideration. Not that I always go along with the critics, but I mean, I will let them influence at least provide information. You know, I don't decide whether to watch something based on critics, but if I do hear that either critics or audiences think a season isn't so good, but there are seasons afterwards that were better, then I'll stick with the show. It's just with me, it's about the patience of like watching 6 or 7 seasons of like 150 hours of one thing can become a little bit. I just I get stale very easily with like stuff, and I kind of want to like mix it up. It's like, okay, can we just watch something else tonight? Let's watch something different. I don't want to just be watching this show every night. Like you know, um, so
Okay.
yeah, I it's
So
just it's that commitment for the shows that kind of like makes me less likely to watch it. It's like all of that time I could spend watching one season of a show, I could have watched 5 movies. And it's like to me that's 5 stories, whereas like the show is like one story for 12 episodes.
okay.
So it's like, you know, it's the same thing as reading novels. Like I like novels. I have a master's in English literature, but I don't particularly find myself reading a whole lot of novels because it's just so time consuming.
Okay. Let's play World Mic Power. You've got the microphone and you've got advice to give to the world for 30 seconds. It gets translated into every language, broadcast into everybody's ears. What do you have to say?
I'd say everybody on this planet is going to die at some point, and let's start acting like it in the sense of let's learn how to take a joke. Let's learn how to not get butthurt over ridiculous, petty, tribalistic bullshit. And, let's actually learn to have a conversation that involves just as much listening as it involves talking. Because it seems like a lot of people, they like to talk, but not so good on the listening. So that'd probably be about what I'd say. But I got to be honest. Every time I've seen this question on a bunch of your sessions, and every time I hear that question, I think of something different. It's like this is just what's popped into my head this time. It's like
Okay.
there was one time I think I was like I was thinking about if he asked me that, I think I'd say this Elvis Costello like quote from the song "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding." It's like every time it's like something different.
It popped in my head as soon as you said Elvis Costello. I figured that's probably where you were going with that. Um, let me ask Rachel to chat with you for a few minutes while I fill up a cup of coffee for myself, and I'm going to ask her to ask you about things that you want to know before you say yes to going to a party. So,
Before I
what
say yes,
questions do
okay.
you have before agreeing to go to a party? Here comes Rachel. I'll be right back.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How about yourself?
Good, good, very good. Nice to talk to you.
You too. So what are some things that you would like to know about the party before going?
Um, who's going would be number one.
Who's
Like I
going?
want some idea of who's going. Um, what's going to happen? What's going to happen at this party? As far as for instance, I had one group of friends who watched the same movie around Christmas every year. And I was just like, I wish once in a while they'd mix it up and watch something different. And I decided not to go because I said, oh, they're doing the same old Christmas get together where they're going to watch that movie again. And it's not that it's a bad movie. It's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I mean, it's a funny movie, but I had already watched it with them like 4 or 5 times. And it's like, okay, can we do something different? So I'd want to know like what the activities would be, who would be going. Um, and I think that's really, all that I would be concerned about. Um, Mostly, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, um, if you find out that there's some people who are going to be at this party that you don't particularly enjoy, would that change your mind about going to the party?
It may. Uh, yeah, I
Okay.
would say it may. I mean, it wouldn't. If there were other people there that I also got along pretty well with, then it probably wouldn't. I'd just be like, oh, I'll just avoid that person. You
Right.
know, like I just wouldn't. But if it's somebody that I actually had a clashed with or had a kind of like there's bad blood, I probably wouldn't go. I'd just be like, yeah, they're gonna skip that one.
Okay.
Um, you know,
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and it's funny that you say that your group of friends would watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, because that was a group of my girlfriends in college. That's the movie that they would go to also, like all the
yeah.
time. Yeah, every year we would.
It's so popular. It's so ridiculously popular, and I don't understand why. Because I've always thought the original Vacation movie was funnier, but
Yes, I
it was
I
just me.
agree. I actually totally agree with you that the regular Vacation movie is funnier than the Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. But it's kind of like a cult classic, because I think a lot of people do watch it during the holidays.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
okay, so would you say that when you're at these events, at these gatherings, do you like to mingle, or do you kind of like to, talk to the people that you know and like hang out until someone approaches you? Or are you more of a
I
mingler?
um I'm not really a mingler in the sense of I don't think I'm a mingler in the sense you mean there. Like I'm more of like I would rather pull someone aside. Like if I see three or four people talking, I my kind of strategy is I go there and I kind of stand there, and it's usually kind of awkward, and I don't like the experience at all of standing there and just kind of like they're already talking about something and I have no context. Like they might be talking about like Star Trek or something, like something that I know nothing about. And so I just kind of stand there awkwardly and like wait until I hear something where I can like jump in and be like, "Oh, that. Like I know, yeah, like I know about that. Like that's like this, and like then I bring in then I kind of like integrate into the conversation that way. But it's like I do find that I'm better off like with one-on-one, like taking somebody aside or like, even at most like maybe two people, two other people talking to them, as opposed to like I see like I've been to parties and stuff where it's like six people sitting at a table, and they're all just like going back and forth. And I'm just like I'm not that kinetic. Like I'm not that like I don't walk into the party and just be like, hey, hey, I was kind of like that in college, but that's because I was in a fraternity. So I basically knew those guys like really, really well. So like I was completely comfortable. They really were almost like family members. So I like around them I would kind of like loosen up and just be like, "Ugh," But with my friends that I've had like in the past 20 years since then, like none of those friends have I ever really acted that way around because I don't know them well enough. I haven't really bonded with them to the extent that I did with those college friends.
Okay.
So I find that I'm a little bit more guarded at parties.
Okay, so you're more guarded at
A
parties.
little bit, yeah, I have my guard up.
I feel you there. I feel you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's look at your TE a little bit more. Um, so, imagine you've been hired for a temp job at a ridiculous rate of pay, so you just can't say no. And you get to choose either go around and fix things like wiggly doorknobs and jiggly toilet handles, or you deal with complaining customers and calming them down on the phone all day.
Complaining customers.
Do you think you'd be good at that job?
Uh, I think if it was over the phone, I'd be better than in person. I think in person, when someone's screaming in your face, I don't know how well I would react to that. I don't that because when I'm threatened like that, if somebody gets in my face and starts screaming, like I don't know how I would react that way. But if it's over the phone and I know I'm expecting it and it's part of the job and it's just somebody on the phone that's pissed off, I could probably do that. It's not so much that I'd be good at it; it's that I'd be far better than fixing toilets.
Okay.
Like I just know I can't. I'm really not good with any kind of repairing broken stuff and like figuring out like what's wrong, taking things apart and like putting them back together and like figuring out how the machinery works, like that kind of stuff. I'm just not. It's not even that whether I'm good at it. I'm just not interested in it.
Right. Um. Okay.
But
So.
I do kind of like working with people a little bit more than I like working with items.
Okay. So what's gonna make you more angry, or what's gonna make you more defensive if somebody accuses you of being unreliable, or if somebody complains that you're repeating yourself?
Uh, probably probably saying that I'm unreliable.
How about that you accidentally hurt someone's feelings, or that you were boring?
Which would
Make you more
bother me more
make you more defensive is the question here.
that I was boring.
Okay, which would make you more defensive, that you were illogical or that you were boring?
You know something? Can I go back on that last one? I actually think I would be more likely to get annoyed if somebody said that I was hurt, that I was like being inconsiderate or
Okay.
like hurting someone's feelings, because I think I'd say, well, they shouldn't be getting upset over this because this is the reality of it. So excuse me, like I'm just telling it like it is. Don't shoot the messenger.
Okay. Well,
I
what
think I
what
would
if it's
probably
what if it's this
snap at
scenario though?
someone.
What if it's this
You know,
scenario with the hurt feelings? You meet Judy and Joan, and they're sisters, but one of them looks kind of older than the other one, and you say, "Oh, so when did you and your daughter get here?" Sure. And she got her feelings hurt because of that.
um, I wouldn't be defensive there. I would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I mean, that I understand because I've got to tell you, like, there have been numerous occasions where people on the phone have, for some reason, they've thought based on the sound of my voice that I'm a woman,
Oh.
and they always they say, "Ma'am," and I just say, I'm not a ma'am," and they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, sir, I'm so sorry."
Well,
It's
I've had
happened at the
people
drive-through.
I've had people refer to Rachel as my daughter.
Really, really, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not too recently, uh, but especially when we first got together. She was like 34, I was 48, and she was a young looking 34, I was an old looking 48. It made enough sense, I guess. So it was like,
When I was Yeah, when I was a senior in high school, this girl and I briefly started dating, and she was a freshman, and she was incredibly short and looked like she could have been in sixth or seventh grade. And I remember, and I didn't really want. I liked this other girl, so I didn't want to get involved. But she was like, the friends tried to set us up and everything. And one day, a guy who had a locker right next to mine, she was at my locker, and he came over and said, "Hey, do you have a sister?" And he thought this girl was my sister. And within a week after that, we were broken up. I just said, I can't do this.
the
I can't
FE
do
the
this.
FE burdens were too much.
And also, I was fast approaching 18, at which point it probably would have been, especially with how she looked. I would have been like, it would have been
It's just
trouble,
it
trouble
wasn't
legally.
gonna play no matter what. Is the point?
Yeah.
Um, well, okay, so you're pretty obviously on the FETI side of things and not on the FITE side of things. That seems obvious from all of your answers across the board. So that we can eliminate half types right there. To me,
Okay.
you seem dramatically more SI than NI, which puts you in Alpha Quadra, which is kind of what I was thinking at first. I was thinking maybe Alpha Quadra or maybe ENFP were my first two thoughts. You remind me of somebody, but I can't figure out who it is. You remind me a lot of somebody I know, but I can't figure out who it is. Um, so, I mean, without doing any before I do any additional double checking, my both gut and results typing of you lands you at ISFJ.
Really?
Yeah, but that I don't feel like I've done a thorough job here, and I want to do additional checks and such. Can you tell me what you thought you were coming in?
Not really. I mean, it was split between various intuitive types. Probably, I was thinking. I was going back and forth between INFP, INTP, INFJ mostly.
Okay, I mean INFJ makes plenty of sense because same 2 3 TIFE. Um,
Yeah.
INFP makes very little sense because
Yeah.
you're pretty countervaluey towards the
It's the
FI.
FI. The FI is the issue there.
You have a built-in. I can just tell you have a built-in wanting to shit on FI thing going on, which which I which I greatly value and appreciate. I just want to say I recognize that indication um, okay. So as far as the SINI question, then because INTP is not out of the question, but I didn't really do a whole lot of TI questions. You got them right, the ones I asked you. So let's try a. Well, let's try some with symbols instead of words. So if either P or Q or not Q, then S. What can we conclude, if anything?
If either P or Q or not Q, then S. Um, the, just trying to think of trying to make sense of why. So you're saying Q could be S, but not Q is also S?
Well, it tells you if you have either P or Q, or if you have not Q, then you have S. So you can replace those with words.
So then we can conclude that P would be S.
Um, right. If P then S, right, is what you can conclude.
Yeah.
And if you were to put it in words, it'd be like, if I have either a dog or a cat, or I don't have a cat, then I have a snake. But I haven't established that I either have a cat or I don't have a cat, or that I have a
Yeah.
dog. So since I either have a cat or I don't have a cat, then we can conclude. I guess. See, I'm not sure what you can conclude with that. Can you conclude that we definitely have a snake? Not necessarily because you
I
could
think
have.
you would conclude that the dog. Wouldn't you conclude that the dog was the is essential for the snake?
Well,
if you
well, here's the thing. I think there's a rule of inference that states basically um, you can create a syllogism which is Q or not Q. And once you have Q or not Q, then I'm still not sure. Maybe some INTP will chime in on this and clarify for me. It's an interesting question because uh, the real question is the existentiality of Q. You know, because
yeah.
If Q doesn't exist, then you have neither Q nor not Q. But if Q does exist, then you have one or the other, right?
Hmm.
So maybe you have to get into quantification theory to answer that. Okay, regardless, I got myself in a down a tunnel I didn't mean to travel, asking a question I never asked before. As I normally ask a question, how about something like this? If P then Q, and if P then R, and not Q, what can we conclude?
Okay, can you just repeat that all at once again?
If P then Q, and if Q then R, and not Q, what can we conclude?
Not P. We would conclude not P. And was the other one if Q then R?
Right.
Um, I think that might be it. I don't know if we can prove that
Yeah,
the R, there would be no R.
the only thing we can conclude is not P. Is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can you explain your understanding of the word truth to me?
Um, I see truth as being something um, that is built upon consistency of both factual information, provable factual information, combined with the ability to interpret that information within a systemic framework that makes sense.
Okay. Do you think that cognitive functions provides that framework for you?
Um, I mean, in terms of the functions, you mean what you mean, like by studying typology, or by just through my behavior?
No, I mean, when you said that thing right there, I thought that's what cognitive functions does for me, is it provides a single metaframe through which I can interpret the events of my life.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it more in a sense of, just to put it more in a practical kind of, or a real life example. Like, a set of given information about, for instance, say, um, a political cause, or a political something that's a political issue that's current, and you understand what the statistics are and what the factual information is about this stuff.
Deforestation.
Um, However, you know, how does that information, how do you contextualize that information within other frameworks, and in order to not view that information in a vacuum? It's like information with context is, I guess, what I'm kind of the simplistic way of what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like, without the context, the information is just, it can be just as easily manipulated as, as the context could be manipulated as well. In other words, things lacking in factual information is going to result in poor truth. But also over reliance on factual information without understanding where that factual information actually fits is also going to be bad for truth, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, you're very correct about things. I don't know what to say typologically about that. Okay. Can you, let's say I didn't understand the concept of, I said, somebody said to me today, fake it till you make it. I don't get what that means. Can you explain the concept to me?
I couldn't understand what you said.
Okay.
Face and you're making?
Fake it till you make it.
Oh, fake it till you make it. Oh. So explain that to you, in other words?
Yeah, I've never heard this expression before. Somebody said it to me. Can you explain what it means?
It means that if you have not yet achieved success, then you need to live your life and project yourself to others as if you have already succeeded. In other words, if your goal is to be, for instance, a writer, you should walk around and act as if you are a published author and that you have the, believing in yourself and all of that, even if you haven't done it yet, because you know you're going to do it. So you're faking it until you actually do it, until you actually make it.
So is the principle behind this that faking it will help me to actually make it, or that it's just a good idea to fake it until you have made it so that you have some of the benefits of having made it before actually having made it?
I think it's to motivate you to actually make it, and possibly also to deceive some people into thinking that you're more important than you are in a deceptive way, which wouldn't be so good. I'm not really a believer in fake it till you make it myself. I don't, if I haven't accomplished anything, I don't really feel the need to be walking around like I'm some great person, if there's just nothing to show for it.
I
So
guess
I'm not a fan of.
I guess the actual principle behind it is that if you're faking the behaviors of one who's accomplished what you want to accomplish, then those behaviors are implicit to accomplishing it. But that's only true for some
Yeah,
kinds of things, So if I'm faking
yeah,
being a good janitor by doing all my work as well as I can fake doing it until I actually learn how to do it well, that's a good way to learn how to be a good janitor, right?
yeah,
But it's not a good way to learn how to be a good writer. To fake being a successful writer anyway is not a good way to become a successful writer. To walk around with
yeah.
dressed in a smoking coat and with a journal and paper and I'm an author T-shirt on or something is probably not going to help. Okay, interesting. Can you talk about how you understand the link between utility and value in people?
Uh, I am not, that. Yeah, that's one thing I get into a lot with my friend who you also typed. You know, we kind of clash over that utility stuff. Because it's like utility to me is like the well, this is just how things
Rachel,
work.
thanks. Sorry.
This is just, like it's like utility is just like, okay, well, this is a means to an end.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
This is Aaron. I'm calling for Eric.
Yeah, tell him I'll call him back. I don't know who he is, but I'll call him back. I'm in the middle of a session.
He's in the middle of a session. I'll call you back.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Here. Bye.
So,
I think it's somebody who emailed me like 2 days ago, but I haven't replied to I haven't checked my email in a couple of days. Okay. So you were saying?
so yeah, utility. It's just kind of like, well, this is the way things have to get done. This is like we need to do this because we need to have all the dots, the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and it's just we've got to do it by the book. We've got to do it in the way that is going to allow us to achieve our end goal. It doesn't really matter if there's any kind of value to that. So value would be like, does it make sense to me? Whereas utility is, it doesn't have to make sense. We just need this much money in the bank by the end of the month. It doesn't matter what we do, how we do it. We just need this much money in the bank by the end of the month. Period.
Okay.
So we're gonna use whatever strategy we're gonna use. In other words, I think value is, if the system is broken, why is it broken? How can it be fixed? Whereas utility is, well, if the system is broken, we're just going to have to work with a broken system, because if we fix it, we might not reach our end goal.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a situation, and I want you to say, here's a saying that encapsulates your situation, okay?
Okay.
So, my car engine, check engine light was on, and it would go off and it would go on again, and I kept putting off getting it checked out. And finally, when I did get checked out, I learned that if I had just dealt with it sooner, I would have avoided this big repair, but now I got this big repair.
Okay. And what am I supposed to do now?
You tell me a saying, a rule of thumb that I should have applied there that this would fall under.
If the check engine light comes on, you need to deal with it immediately, unless you know that the reason it's coming on is something that you can put off for a period of time. For instance, I get the check engine light coming on, and it usually means an oil change, and I can tell from the mileage that it's. But usually it comes on a little bit before I really need, so I know I can wait a little bit, but I don't want to wait too long. But if it comes on at a time when you don't need an oil change, you should probably deal with it quickly, as soon as possible.
Okay, I want to ask Rachel the same question and see what answer she gives. She didn't hear your answer. So, if here's a little story, and I want you to come up with a rule of thumb or saying or something that sums up what I should have been paying attention to. So, my check engine light kept going on and going off, going off, and going off. Finally, when I took it into the shop, they said, "Oh, if you just brought it in sooner, you would have avoided this major problem, and now you got this major problem." So, can you sum up, give me a rule of thumb that I should have followed?
When the check engine light goes on, you should go to the car person.
Okay. So, that's a more concise version of what you said, basically. What I was actually going for there is not something so specific, but something like a stitch in time saves nine. I'm looking for a saying that's not specific to the thing I'm telling you about, that explains the thing I'm telling you about. So the old saying, a stitch in time saves nine, is exactly about that scenario, right? That if I had just,
Yeah.
if I had stitched up my little tear right away, it wouldn't have gotten so bad, right?
Yeah.
So let's try this again with a different kind of scenario. Well, Jimmy came over, and he looked frankly like a clown, but he was so proud of his new shirt, and he said, well, what do you think of it? And I said, it makes you look like a clown, unfortunately. And he was so upset, and I don't know what to do about it now. I guess I fucked up.
Loose lips sink ships.
Okay. Did you hear what I just said? So Jimmy came over, and he looked kind of like a clown. His shirt was so loud and horrible, and he was so proud of it. And he asked me, he was like, "What do you think of my shirt?" And I said, "Oh, you kind of look like a clown." And he got so offended, and now I guess I fucked up. What's it saying? Keeping in mind
Better to say
Go ahead.
nothing. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right. That would be the correct answer as I would interpret it. But I like your answer, which was loose lips sink ships. I think they both work. Yours is a broader category. But okay, interesting. So I would say that basically all indicators are that you are definitely SI, not NI. You consistently take concepts and explain them as examples, and that's a textbook SI thing.
Okay.
And it's why a fluency in both introverted intuition and introverted sensing is necessary for anybody to be good at explaining things ultimately, because they've got to explain concepts and then convert them into concrete examples that other people understand. So that's typical of alpha quadra, and some of beta quadra. But for you, I think the SI is pretty evident. So the only question is, are you an INTP or an ISFJ? I'm confident you're not an ENTP. Your extroverted sensing doesn't seem like ego block enough for you to be INTP, but let me see if I can nail that down a little bit more. Can you tell me what happens in the following story? A man and a duck walk into a bar owned by a rabbi. And the duck sits up at the bar and says, I'd like to order a pork sandwich. And the man scolds the duck, saying, Hey, this is a rabbi. You can't order pork from a rabbi. And the rabbi says, No. I'm not that kind of rabbi. Don't worry about it. We got plenty of pork sandwiches. And he proceeds to make the duck a pork sandwich. Now you complete the story.
Okay. It was a man and a duck who came in. That's a man with the duck, right? And then there's a rabbi.
Yeah, the rabbi owns the bar. The man and the duck walk in. The duck sits down. The man saddles up next to the duck at the bar. The duck orders a pork sandwich. The man scolds the duck for ordering pork from a rabbi, and the rabbi says, No, it's fine. We serve pork here. And proceeds to cook a pork sandwich. What happens?
Okay. Was it the man who? I'm sorry. Was the man the one who said that you shouldn't say that to the rabbi, or was
No,
it the duck?
the man and the duck walk into the bar. The duck sits down at the bar and says, I'd like to order a pork sandwich. The rabbi owns the bar and is keeping bar and making the food. And the man with the duck says to the duck, Hey, don't order a pork sandwich from him. He's a rabbi. And then the rabbi reassures the duck, No, it's fine. We serve pork here. And proceeds to make him a pork sandwich. Now you finish the story.
As the man turns away, as the rabbi turns away from the man and the duck to move towards the oven where he will be making the pork sandwich, he scowls a bit under his breath. And he pulls out the pork, puts it in the oven, and looks inside and says, God damn it. I'm not even supposed to cook this in this oven. But he's going to do it because he's got an ulterior motive. He makes the sandwich, he serves it to the duck. The duck begins to eat the sandwich. He says, Does that taste good? And the duck says, Yes, it does. See? He really doesn't mind cooking pork. And the rabbi says, Oh, I don't mind cooking. There's all kinds of things I like to cook. One of my favorite dishes, in fact, is right this way. Let me show you. The man says, Oh, don't go with him. Look, you're already bothered this man enough, duck. Don't go with him. Don't bother him. Oh, no. I want to show you. I want to show you my favorite item. It's right here in this book behind the counter. Come back here with me. And he pulls out this book and he shows this elegant looking dish. And he says, See that? And the duck says, That looks delicious. What is it? And he says, Well, it's another of my specialties. Now, if you've enjoyed my pork, you'll certainly enjoy this. And the duck says, Okay, well, do you have any of it made? And he says, No, but I will. In just a few moments. What is it? And the rabbi tells the duck, It's duck l'orange.
Okay. I think it's a good conclusion to the story. It's left unsaid whether, in fact, he actually kills the duck or whether the duck just learns his lesson from that story or not.
Yeah.
If he kills the duck, then the man could kill the rabbi, and then the police could kill the man in a shootout. And then we could really
Yeah,
get a growing pile of
yeah.
bodies, you know, which I always.
That was a tough one. That story was a little trickier than I saw the one with the Lich typing session that you with the Slobodan, the elf one. Like that story, I remember when I watched that one. I that one was a little bit easier to like. It was a little bit easier to come up with something cool to like end it. This one was a little more challenging because it's
Mm.
just about a pork sandwich. But that one was like about I think it was the dolls that like could be cry, they could be sad or they could be happy, and
But they
the
couldn't be
elf.
both. Oh yeah, I forgot about that
Yeah,
story.
yeah, that one.
I think I would have ended the duck rabbi man story like. So the rabbi serves the duck the pork sandwich, and the duck says, "What the hell is this? I can't eat this." And the rabbi says, "Why not?" And the duck says, "I'm Jewish. I don't eat pork." And then the rabbi says, "Well, why did you
That
order it?"
that okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's really good.
And then the rabbi says, "Well, we don't serve ducks here." And then the man
Yeah.
says, "Ah, the beauty of paradox." No, I think you're an ISFJ. I feel pretty confident in my typing of you. Now, you join an elite and noble and revered list of people who think they're NTs or NFs and are ISFJs, including like Oliver
Yeah.
Linehan, NT somewhere, um, and OKN. They all are some of my top commenters and most wise contributors, and they're ISFJs. So my mom was an
I know
ISFJ
so
and really, really a bright person, and
I know so little about the type. That's the only thing. I don't really know much. That's actually a type that I really never looked into. I just kind of never considered it a possibility
what
because of the sensing. Because of the sensing mostly. I I I don't know. It's like
you could be an
I
INTP. I'm gonna say is I'm not 100% on this. Yeah,
yeah.
there's maybe I'm
Would
at
it help if I do mention like my SE, as far as SE polar? I know you said something like my about my SE didn't seem something enough to be an
uh,
INTP, but
no, I was talking about your
I
extrovert
am quite
intuition.
I can be fairly inactive in terms of going out and doing stuff. I don't know if that would make a difference. The other thing would be the doesn't the ISFJ have N NE inferior or something? Are they NE inferior?
Fourth slot.
I don't know. I just wonder if I'd really have SI bet so much better than NE.
Well, instead of having
Like
a collection of things to make shit with, you've got a collection of other things other people made. When you're talking about your
okay,
like
and that's what S and that's SI.
you're continuing to accumulate a collection of intuitive ideas because that's the sort of thing you pay attention to. As an SI person, there's a wide range of manifestations from soccer mom to intellectual, and it depends on what their SI
Yeah,
accumulates over the course of their life. If you accumulate a bunch of interesting philosophical stuff, good art, and other intuitive stuffs, if you're language based like my mom was, and she was an English teacher and a great writer, and then you know you are going to identify a lot more with the intuitives, particularly INTPs, ENTPs, and INFJs, than you are going to with the typical descriptions of sensors.
yeah,
Because SI is a learning function, and you become what you learn, especially so if you're an ISFJ.
yeah. I did think going in that SC or TE were probably my polar functions.
I think it's TE.
So
I mean,
you know,
sure, you got your 4 steps down pretty good, although that was for lighting the cigarette, not smoking it. But
yeah,
your response to the drought thing was SI, not TE. You've heard about this one solution that seems promising, and then your description of things that you have trouble with, like the logging into stuff, and then you forgot the password to this, and you got to, like that's very anti-TE and TE polarish.
Yeah.
Your choice of dealing with complaining customers, even though nobody wants to do that, over fixing niggling problems in the workplace, very TE polar. And so, I mean, also your TI
What would being
seems
messy?
third.
What would being messy be? Like not struggling to like keep things clean
I
in the
mean,
apartment.
it's called being a perceiver. Because ISFJs are perceivers; they're not judgers.
really.
Yeah, all the
My mom might have been an ISFJ.
all of the N's and I's are perceiving functions, and if you got one first, I mean, all the N's and S's. I'm sorry, the N's and S's are all perceiving functions. If you got one first, you're a perceiver, and cleanliness is just not going to be next to godliness. You know, my mom was pretty tidy, but she was under my dad's rule of thumb most of the
Yeah.
time. And in her own car, it was kind of a shithole for much of her life. Like my car is, it gets all filled up with trash, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine too.
So, okay, if you're comfortable with me publishing this, then you'll get other people's input as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm going to stop recording and I'll
All right.
upload this forthwith.
Okay. All right. Have a great night, Eric.
You too. Nice chatting with you.
You too.